You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL episode 117. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with us on the newest episode after a crazy week 3 of college football, a solid week 2 of the NFL. We got some other news with a few quarterback injuries, some college football national contenders coming up here on the show. You already see who's in the studio. Not a big deal because we are going crazy on the content this year with Marcus. Check him out at Marcus Talk Sports. At Protect Our Queens. Introduce yourself as always, brother. Not like you need one. I mean, we just had a crazy 42-minute instant reaction, but now I get to bring you in for the full breakdown of college football week 3.
Always a pleasure to be here, man. Always appreciate it when people think of me to come on their show, whether it's planned out a week in advance or planned out an hour and a half ago. Whatever it is.
Hey, we have to pivot. Yeah. We have to pivot sometimes. I was even willing to offer you my notes. Be like, bro, you could literally be AJL 2.0 and we'll just call you Marcus Talk Sports and we'll just go back and forth. You know, that's why I need a co-host, bro. That's why I need a co-host.
Hey, you need a co-host. I'm your guy. I got nothing else.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. I think for the college season, like it's going to be you and I tapped in a lot this year. And I knew that once we did that instant reaction. But yeah, y'all make sure to check him out at Marcus Talk Sports. He was great for literally with a 90-minute notice jumping in with a pretty fat lineup. He's going to be recording at Protect Our Queens at 8 o'clock as well. So make sure you check him out over there. All the things you do, like, share, subscribe at NFL with AJL, at Marcus Talk Sports. You know why we make content. It's for you guys to engage. Let's go ahead and jump to the top of the show, man, as the Chiefs fall 3 straight times for the first time ever in Patrick Mahomes' era as the Chiefs quarterback. This is the first time that Patrick Mahomes has lost 3 straight NFL games. He lost the Super Bowl, lost week 1 to the Chargers, and he lost week 2 to the Eagles. The Eagles also come out and officially are trying to get the tush-push banned because we have multiple false starts and multiple pivotal points in this game. And this is really what the Super Bowl should have looked like right last year. I mean, this is, I think, what we were really expecting outside of the gaffed tush-pushes. But as always, man, what are your takeaways?
I think the big thing for me is there's 2 of them. First of all, you start with the Chiefs. I'm not going to be the guy that says the Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs because I think that is just being prisoner of the moment. They are missing some important players, right? They're missing Rashee Rice. They're missing obviously Xavier Worthy, who was out due to an injury he suffered by running smack into Travis Kelce during the game against
got pretty banged up there too
in Brazil. Yeah, got banged up pretty bad there. So I'm not going to say they're going to miss the playoffs, but what I will say is without this firepower and their schedule coming up, Patrick Mahomes is not a guy who is, I think we've seen this. Patrick Mahomes at this point, I don't think is going to be able to carry the Chiefs by himself this season. We've seen him do it previously, but they've got Baltimore in 2 weeks. Then they have Detroit. Then they have Washington. Then they go to Buffalo. Then they go to Denver, right? They also have a game against the Texans, have another game against the Chargers. Like, now, obviously, they'll be fully healthy by some like later on in the season. Their bye week is week 10. But this is an offense that now for the second year in a row is the reason why the Chiefs are falling short. And to start 0-2 when the Chargers have a chance to be 2-0 after tonight's game, when the Raiders have a chance even to be 2-0 after tonight's game, as we talked about a little bit ago, like this is going to be a tough division. And the Chargers are proving that they are poised to make this interesting for the Chiefs. Travis Kelce hasn't looked good so far through 2 weeks of football. I don't know if that's because he's aging, and that's because he's busy planning a wedding, whatever the case may be. But like he's clearly not
taking out Xavier Worthy because Taylor Swift is excited on the Brothers podcast about it.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Kansas City, but something needs to change. As for the Eagles are 2-0, but the Eagles by no stretch of the imagination have looked like the dominant football team that Eagles fans would have led you to believe that they would have been coming into the season, right?
Oh, yeah.
Saquon Barkley carried the ball, nearly 25 times in that game yesterday, and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown had a combined less than 10 targets in that game. Now, I know that the Eagles are going to say a win is a win is a win is a win, which it is. But for me, as the guy who believes that Jalen Hurts is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, as a guy who believes that Jalen Hurts is elite, the Eagles, and specifically the offensive coordinator Kevin Buccillo, aren't doing him any favors by only having him get to 101 passing yards in that game. Now, granted, that does give some credit to the Chiefs defense. But again, when you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert as your receiving core. Oh, and by the way, you also have Jahan Dotson. There's no reason why Jalen Hurts will only be throwing for 101 passing yards in any football game. There's no reason why you should be pounding Saquon Barkley so much. Not when you went out there and you got A.J. Dillon from Green Bay. Not when you went out there and you just traded for Tank Bigsby from the Jaguars after week 1. Like, you've built this roster to be deep and to spread the ball around and make sure that everybody eats. And so far through 2 games, everybody hasn't eaten. So I'm not concerned about the Eagles as much as I'm concerned about the Chiefs, but I do think it is a bit eyebrow raising that the Eagles offense hasn't looked nearly as dominant as Eagles fans would have led you to believe it would have been coming into the season. And I know they'll figure it out. I know they'll get there. And I do think they're still the team to beat in the NFC. But if I were an Eagles fan, and again, I know a win is a win is a win.
Over your Packers after 2 weeks?
If I were an Eagles fan, all I'm saying is, if I were an Eagles fan, I wouldn't be pleased with how we've won either of those 2 games.
Right.
Last week or even the game on Thursday, because the game on Thursday very easily could have lost if CeeDee Lamb catches 4 balls.
Right. Yep, 100%. And I mean, they're also easily having a touchdown taken off the board and pivotal tush pushes in the game brought back on them because of false starts that would have moved them back 5 yards and taken them out of tush push territory. Clearly, with just the down and distance, that it was. So I heard you say that you still think the Eagles are the team to beat in the NFC over your Packers?
Yeah, they're still the
Eagles are the team to beat.
They've got the better quarterback. They have the better offensive line. They got the better defensive line. Like they are still the better team on paper. And I think
still a stacked roster, all 20.
And it's still a stacked roster. I think the only thing that they don't have better than the Packers is coaching. And I think that's honestly just a preference thing. I think that Matt LaFleur is one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated head coach in the NFL. Not to say that he's like light years better than Nick Sirianni, but I do think that he is better in some regards than Nick Sirianni. I also think, though, there are areas that Nick Sirianni does surpass him. But yeah, I would still say they're defending Super Bowl champs for a reason. And their team on paper, the best roster in football. So yeah, I would still say through 2 weeks, they are the best team in the NFC still. Packers, though, very close number 2.
Right. Yeah, I think it's Eagles 1, Packers 2 in terms of dominating teams in the NFC. It's very clear that Patrick Mahomes needs help right now. Ever since Tyreek Hill has got out of town, they've really been looking for that surefire wide receiver 1. And you've had the Sky Moores, and the Rashee Rices, the Xavier Worthies, of course, the Travis Kelce's of the world. But now you're watching Patrick Mahomes scramble for 70, 80, 90 yards, it feels like, in a game. I mean, I know at one point in this game, Patrick Mahomes had, 70 rushing yards. I think it was in like the first half or something like that. And, I've got the numbers in front of me, but just kind of going off the top before we get into the on paper takes. It's like Mahomes clearly needs help. I thought it was very impressive that the Chiefs defense also was able to come out, stifle, Jalen Hurts, be able to, be all over AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. And that's just a compliment of Steve Spagnuolo. I mean, this game was really, it was not Patrick Mahomes versus Jalen Hurts. It was not Andy Reid versus Nick Sirianni. It was Steve Spagnuolo versus Vic Fangio. That's what I felt the whole game. It was a chess match. It was a stalemate. Like, this is what we expected out of the Super Bowl last year. And I thought Spags did great getting pressure on Hurts. Obviously Saquon got some of his carries. The Eagles were still able to run the ball fairly well or good. But it's like, yeah, you come away with this win. But, I mean, big fan of Real Talk with MJ. We're going to have him on the show soon. It's like, hey, him as a diehard super fan, Eagles fan, went to the Super Bowl and everything. He's out there saying it too. And I agree with him. You're not happy about winning like this. You don't want to have to win like this. And I felt like the Eagles fumbling the ball on the first snap of the game after Hurts was being pressured kind of just set the tone. And that was really for the Eagles' first drive. And they just go on to only score 20 points in this one. But the fact, again, that both of those defenses were really stifling each other in the first half, really of the first quarter as well. Like, it was just back and forth, nothing happening with either of these guys. And the Chiefs defense just being all over the Eagles' weapons was very impressive. Really big miss by Harrison Butker early on. Obviously, he ended up losing this game by 3. So in hindsight, you could say that's the 3 points that lost you the game. And I fall victim to that too. It's not guaranteed that everything would go the same way, but still a major miss. You definitely felt the Eagles cranking up the run game in this one. And, we know they do that very well. They've got A.J. Dillon, Saquon Barkley, Tank Bigsby that they just picked up. And then, of course, they've got Will Shipley, who always comes in and is able to get carries. But, when Saquon broke through for that touchdown, that's just really the bread and butter, for Philadelphia. Obviously, Cooper DeJean was fantastic in this game. He just continues to be an amazing defensive back and especially an elite tackler. Again, this first half was just a stalemate. It was a chess match. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes was 70 rushing yards. and a touchdown, like looking like Jalen Hurts himself, Patrick Mahomes rushed for almost as many yards as Jalen Hurts threw for. And we heard the exchange between Chris Jones and Jalen Hurts at the end of the game. I was like, oh, Jalen Hurts does know how to talk. Okay. He knows how to pull out the verbal weapons when he needs to. You had Elliott from 58 yards. And even on the broadcast, they said it would have been good from 65 plus. So clearly the Eagles still sporting one of the best kickers in the game. That's a kicker who struggled last season from 50 plus and now had two 58 yarders on the year. Like those kicking concerns, hopefully, are gone for him. I did think the play calling from Andy Reid was a little weak in order to come out and, turn it over on downs to that Eagles defense shortly after. I think it opened up the second half. I just really didn't think it was super creative. And shout out to Devontae Smith as well. I mean, almost making that catch down the sideline before he got a little banged up. It literally proves how your route running and your technique can outdo your size and speed any day, anytime. And Devontae Smith is really just a fine example of that. But at one point, the Chiefs' longest play was 23 yards just to get into plus territory. I mean, at one point in the football game, we're talking about a Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid engineered offense had the longest play of 23 yards. Andrew McCool is a stud, bro. Making plays as a rookie for the Eagles. He's a natural ball hawk. He had a big hit on Gunnar Stockton in the SEC title game last year when he was a Texas Longhorn. I mean, what's new? And that was just absolutely huge as Kansas City was at the 10 after converting the 4th and 1. I mean, that was a major game changer, being able to pick up that interception off of Travis Kelce after he, has the ball bounce off of his hands. This is a big one for Jalen Hurts, though. This stat, he had no passes completed over 6 yards, air yards, if I'm not mistaken. I think he ended up having one towards the end of the game that kind of helped him break out of that category. But the Eagles, again, getting away with double false starts on the tush push to be able to go up by 10, I thought that was just huge. People talk about the Chiefs getting calls. It's like, okay, now here we have the reigning Super Bowl champs coming in, and getting in as well. But they turn around, they make up for it. There was a weak rough in the passer call. I mean, if the pinky grazes the aura or the personal bubble of the helmet, like they're going to throw the flag every single time. And I mean, I guess we have to get used to it, right? But Mahomes overshooting Thornton a couple of times. Tyquan Thornton, who actually had the fastest 40 time in the NFL draft a few years back when he was drafted by the Patriots. Andy Reid saw that matchup. He was it was against Adoree Jackson. It was against Quinyon Mitchell, and he exposed it, and it made it a ball game. Like it was 20-17 with a few minutes to go in this ball game before the tush pushes obviously came out and just really ruined it for Kansas City. But like we said, Mahomes needs help. This was a defensive standoff, and this is really how we expected the Super Bowl to look last year. My New Orleans Saints fall for the second week in a row. They are now 0-2, probably going to miss the playoffs for the 5th straight year. They lose to the Niners 26-21. But Marcus, Spencer Rattler is everything that the New Orleans Saints are expecting him to be. This is now a second week with solid tape, and he is doing his best against a well-coached team in the Niners to engineer a win for the Saints. Now, clearly the Saints are a bad football team. Bad teams find a way to lose. Great teams, even good teams, find a way to win. What were your takeaways on this one? If you were even incited about it, you probably only peeked at this because I'm a Saints fan and you have enough love in your heart for me, even though you think we're not going to win a game. But go ahead.
I mean, so far we're 2 for 2 on that prediction, so we'll see how the rest of the season pans out. I will say, though, my biggest takeaway
and I've officially wasted about 7 hours of my life over the last 14 days pouring my time.
That's a good point. I would say my biggest takeaway is I think Mac Jones, and I know it was the Saints, but Mac Jones' ability to be effective, and be efficient, and be productive for San Francisco is proof that what I've been saying about Brock Purdy has been true from day one, which is that he is overrated. Because all you need to be as a quarterback in a Kyle Shanahan offense is competent. And we saw that. Mac Jones, same system, same weapons. I thought he looked sharper.
Same quarterback. He's Jimmy G. He's
more
Brock.
decisive. I thought he looked slightly more explosive in instances than Brock Purdy. We're talking about 3 touchdowns, nearly 300 passing yards. And again, he was in control. Now, not to say that Brock Purdy isn't these things, but there are no major differences between Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. And so I think when we have conversations about where Brock Purdy ranks, not just in the NFC, but in the NFL amongst his quarterback peers, and then you see a guy in Mac Jones who is the quarterback too and isn't better than Brock Purdy necessarily. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is if you have a guy in Mac Jones who is a backup, who lost the starting job to Drake May, right? Mm-hmm. And that guy comes into San Francisco and succeeds and does what Brock Purdy probably would have done against New Orleans, that causes me to pause and say, well, is Brock Purdy really the top 15 guy that people say that he is? Is Brock Purdy really one of the 5 to 7 best quarterbacks in the NFC that people say that is? And based on what I saw on Sunday, my answer to that question is no. And so, while again, I think a lot of has to do with just I thought a lot of what Mac Jones' success was a product of who and what was around him. I also feel the same way about Brock Purdy. And so if I look at the Niners, and the Niners are just as efficient with Mac Jones in this one game as they were with Brock Purdy last week, I have no reason but to think, well, maybe Brock Purdy is a bit overrated. And now I'm interested to see how the rest of these next, 3 to 6 weeks looks while Brock Purdy continues to recover from his injury. And if Mac Jones continues to remain competent and the Niners are continuing to win football games, the only reason why we would see Brock Purdy play football again this season is because they paid him a huge chunk of change and they need him to.
Yeah. It was crazy to see Mac Jones come out like this, but also it wasn't. And how funny is this? Justin Fields is now a New York Jet when he should have been a number 2 overall pick. When the Niners moved up and ended up taking Trey Lance, it was rumored that Mac Jones was Kyle Shanahan's guy.
Yeah.
And he just went out and balled in his first start with Kyle Shanahan. Justin Fields came out and balled in his first start with the New York Jets. It's funny how things come around. It's like you see success from Baker now. You see success from Sam Darnold now. Jalen Hurts has been able to come around after having a little bit of an odd start. So it's funny how these quarterback carousels can really come full circle. But yeah, I would argue that the San Francisco 49ers have their next franchise quarterback in Mac Jones if for some reason things might not work out with Brock Purdy, which Brock's on a huge deal. We already understand. But they have not a franchise next quarterback, but they have a duplicate of him in the backup quarterback. Let me pull back the overreaction a little bit because the performance from Mac Jones was nice. It was on a Brandon Staley-led defense who gave up 20 points in the first game, 26 points in the second game. I was never really a fan of this hire. Like the last time we saw Brandon Staley coach for an NFL team before he was New Orleans Saints DC, he was giving up 60 plus to the Raiders. He was being asked if that was his job. And the next morning he was let go and nobody was surprised. And the Saints thought that guy would be good to come in and be their DC. But after the first drive of this game, I felt like I could tell how this game was going to go. Kamara had great touches. Rattler had a deep ball to Rashid Shaheed, one-hand catch. I'm convinced Rashid Shaheed is our wide receiver 1, not Chris Olave. I'm so ready for Chris Olave to go. I see why his brother wants him out of there because Olave I question his work ethic. I question his route running. He is always looking to fall down or get out of bounds. He is very brittle on hits. We love serving him up hospital balls. I mean, are we trying to tell him something? Anywho, Olave shells you short on a drop touchdown to open the game. Like you go right down the field against that Niners team and you drop a touchdown. And then Blake Grupe still is employed by the New Orleans Saints. He must have blackmail on Gail Benson or something because this is another week with another clear-cut chip shot missed field goal in the NFL. He has now missed like a 35 and then a 40-yarder over the first 2 weeks of the season. And he was doing this last year. It's time to let him go. It's time to let him go. The offense clearly clicks, though, when Kamara is the focal point. I mean, no question about that. Alvin Kamara is our best player next to Rashid Shaheed on the offense. But like I said, I'm very convinced that the New Orleans Saints do not have a wide receiver 1. And if it is not in Chris Olave. The fact that he's not even able to catch the touchdown pass, I mean, keep his footing on a catch. It was just insane. The Saints come out, 4 flags in the first quarter, but then you have 3 the rest of the game, which is very nice because in week one, they were flagged 16 times, 13 accepted penalties. You're flagged 4 times in the first quarter, which means you're on pace to be flagged 16 times again. But then you clean it up, only 3 for the rest of the game. Juwan Johnson had multiple drops in this one. Last week, it was huge on flags, and then it was huge this week on drops. Juwan Johnson dropped the touchdown pass last week. Now, he did have a very nice touchdown pass thrown right into his hands by Spencer Rattler. CMC was cutting us up per usual whenever there's a running back like that going up against the Saints defense ever since the elite Cam Jordan and the David Onyemata and the Trey Hendrickson days of stopping up the line, not allowing a 100-yard rusher. Like that just seems to be gone. But Spencer Rattler, yet again, another week to where New Orleans Saints fans cannot point at their quarterback and say he is the reason that they are losing football games because you scramble, you duck under the tackle, you get the first at the 2-minute warning, and then Rattler, again, putting a ball right in Juwan Johnson's hands for the touchdown. He does hold on. He survives the ground. I'm still upset about that drop in week one. Clearly, you guys know that. We literally have an opportunity to win the game. But guess what? We had an opportunity to win this week too. And like I always say, crazy teams, bad teams, not competent teams always find a way to lose. And then, you got some more mental mistakes. I mean, illegal hands to the face after you come out and force a 3-and-out to open the second half. Like that was vintage Saints football. No place like New Orleans to come out of the half, have a 3-and-out forced on the team, and then you want to have a 3rd and 13 that you're up against, get bailed out by illegal hands to the face. And like, bro, Mac Jones started 0-4, and then he ended up going on a stretch of 15 for 20 with 2 passing touchdowns. Like, again, I'm not shocked because of the system that he's in, but Brandon Staley, again, is running this defense, and I don't know. We did have 10 straight completions for Rattler at one point, which was nice. I love the triple option to convert on the 4th down after you force the strip sack. Like, that's how you get momentum. That's how you really get into this one. Kamara continued to get involved in the offense. Speaking of a play with Kamara, I don't know if you saw it. The fumble from Kamara was very odd. Like, since when is someone trying to bring a catch in on the shoulder, on the helmet, chopping their feet, but they still don't have possession? Like, when is that considered having possession? But I mean, nowadays we don't know what a catch is. We don't know what an incomplete pass is. Like, we are constantly having the standards and the goalpost move by the NFL. And I mean, I guess the 3 and 4 steps he took is what the analyst said on the broadcast as to why, they were going to call it a fumble. The Saints had 2 third downs that got turned into first downs between illegal contact and holding on that drive. All of San Francisco's flags actually came in the second half. And you only had 1 flag up until the middle of the 4th quarter, which ended up, working well, in the second half of that one. You go on the 13-play, 70-yard drive. I mean, a 70-yard drive, 6.5 minutes. You had great catches by Olave, and then you had the touchdown pass to Vele that made it a 5-point game. But the O-line, again, poor protection. Rattler folded in the pocket when it mattered the most, unfortunately. I'm not going to put that directly on Rattler, though, because this is still a guy who has not won an NFL game, but has put us in an opportunity to win a game 2 weeks in a row now, until you have blitzes dialed up by Robert Saleh, the DC for the Niners, and he just understands that, like, it's going to be Spencer Rattler potentially folding in that pocket. But you have the 2-minute drive. That was a big-time chance for Spencer Rattler and Kellen Moore to show the fans what we got, and we had some quick throws to Olave, quick throws to Kamara, but just like on the drive before, the Niners rushed the edges well. They collapsed the pocket to eliminate Spencer Rattler's dual threat capability, and he climbs right into the pressure, unfortunately folds under it. So it was unfortunate to see. I mean, again, Saints 0-2, probably going to miss the playoffs. We know they're rumored. I'm not even going to say they are. They're rumored to be the worst team in the NFL. I think the Dolphins and maybe the Broncos right now, considering how they looked over 2 weeks, between the Colts and the Titans, would like to hold my beer with those considerations. Is Sean Payton as their head coach? But we'll talk about that another day because we have the Seahawks and the Steelers to get on to. But Saints fans, when you're taking a look at your quarterback right now, you got to be realistic. It's not Jake Haener. Tyler Shuck might not even play this year. And the way that Spencer Rattler's looked over 2 weeks, you cannot look at the quarterback position and say that is the sole reason we are losing. The defensive coordinator's name is Brandon Staley. And again, I'm week by week, if we come out next week and give up more than 26 or 21 plus, like, we got to have a conversation. We got to have a conversation about the first defensive coordinator hire that our new head coach, who we have praised so much, has come out and made. The Seahawks blow past the Steelers 31-17. DK Metcalf's revenge game was absolutely spoiled. 3 catches for 20 yards. Meanwhile, you had JSN and Cooper Kupp absolutely blowing out this game. 15 catches, 193 yards. And you wouldn't have really known it unless, you watched the game all the way through. This game was tied at 14 each going into the 4th quarter before that Steelers team let up 17 points. The kickoff situation was crazy. What's your take on this game, man?
At the beginning of the season, when I was on Stuff About Sports, I said that the Seahawks are going to win the division. And I said that we need to keep a lookout for the Seahawks and NFC. And I think this game proved that. I think they're the most underrated team in the NFC at this point. They went into Pittsburgh. They brought in Aaron Rodgers, who seemingly was beating the washed allegations in week 1. They brought him down to earth. And it was a complete game win. The defense made plays. The offense executed when they needed to. And obviously, we saw, as you mentioned, the special teams members, they stole some points, right? I think especially when we look at Sam Darnold, he threw, I think it was two early interceptions. He played near perfect football after that. Kenneth Walker looked great down the stretch of that game, closing the game out with some great runs. And like I said, again, defense forced turnovers in the red zone, which is an area that they have struggled with over the years. They were able to clean that up. And like I said, again, special teams stole the touchdown. All three phases. That's what you want. When you can win on offense, when you can win on defense, and when you can win on special teams, you're going to win yourself a football game. And so when we look at the grand scheme of the NFC, obviously you have the Eagles and the Packers, I think are clearly the 1 and the 2. This is going to be a tight NFC West race between the Rams and the Seahawks and the Niners, as it always is, right? Yep. Jaden Daniels has got a knee thing going on, but you have to assume the Commanders are still going to be in the thick of things, and then maybe we'll see what happens between the Lions and the Vikings as well. And of course, you can't forget about the Buccaneers or the Falcons because someone has to come out of the NFC South. So the NFC, I think, is going to be a little bit tighter than people expect, but the Seattle Seahawks, I think, are a sleeper team. And again, when you go on the road into Pittsburgh against a Pittsburgh Steelers team that was feeling very high coming into this game because of how great Aaron Rodgers looked in week 1 in MetLife against the Jets, and for the defense to force turnovers, for Sam Darnold to make 2 early mistakes and then bounce back, for Kenneth Walker to look what he did, for the defense to look how they did, you have to feel good if you're a part of the Seattle Seahawks organization. And again, just proves my point that they are probably the most underrated team in the NFC right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you, bro. I came out and literally said that the Seahawks were a sleeper team. I mean, you look at everything that they're packing over there. You got Sam Darnold, who looked solid in this game. He is becoming a grown man. He is growing up in front of our eyes. JSN, Cooper Kupp, Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker. You got Spoon on the defense, Leonard Williams, DeMarcus Lawrence, Reek Woolen, obviously Mike McDonald, who is a very solid coach. So I had the Seahawks as a very much sleeper team coming in, and that reel actually did really well on Instagram and on TikTok too. Appreciate you guys for the love a few months back on that. I thought the Steelers defense did a pretty good job getting pressure on Sam Darnold early too. I think, they still let up too many open plays, a lot of easy plays as well. Aaron Rodgers, comes out of this game with a couple of interceptions. And I don't know if you know this, Marcus, but Aaron Rodgers' teams are winless in his last 4 games when he throws multiple INTs. That's an 0-4 record since the start of 2024. Aaron Rodgers actually has 23 regular season games with 2+ interceptions. This is a guy with a 1.4 interception ratio in his career, which I don't know if you knew, it is the best of all time, and it's not even close. He has a 7-16 record all time in the regular season when he throws 2 INTs. So when you look back at the stats of this game, not to be a stat merchant, but you see Aaron Rodgers throwing 2 INTs, it's very rare that he actually comes out and wins in those situations. And the one in the end zone, that was just a great play by Arnold from Seattle, and also a wild throw by Aaron Rodgers to even potentially fit it in there. Georgia fans, if you've made it to this point of the video, do you guys remember Darnell Washington, who was the best tight end in the NFL draft a few years back? And the Steelers took him, and we knew there was a Pat Freiermuth and, a couple of other, I think it was, Jesse James, I think, was a tight end at one point for the Steelers that was there in, Big Ben's final year. And they take Darnell Washington, who was a former basketball player. He's 6'6", 6'7", pretty solid hands, solid route runner, had good speed. And they took him, and he just kind of disappeared. But the 2-point conversion that Aaron Rodgers threw to was Darnell Washington. Darnell Washington looks like an offensive lineman now. He does not move like a tight end. Brother looks like he weighs about 325. I was like, who is this offensive lineman? The broadcaster called out Darnell Washington. I said, what? That's what they did with him? That's what Freiermuth does to a tight end like Darnell Washington? I was mind blown. Again, Georgia fans, if you guys remember Darnell Washington, he was our tight end when we won back-to-back national champions. Huge 6'6" frame over there. Stetson Bennett loved having connections to him. I was floored when I saw that was Darnell Washington over there. I know it's only week 2, but like we said, Seattle is looking very solid. They are very well, probably the most underrated team in the NFC. And Aaron Rodgers did come back to earth this week, 7 of 15, 45 yards and a touchdown just halfway through the third quarter before Jaylen Warren actually erupted when just Seattle forgot how to tackle in this one. Cooper Kupp had multiple third down catches in this game, really kind of turned back the clock there, really stifled those injury concerns, big conversions over the middle of the field. And as of right now, right or wrong, Marcus, the Seahawks are winning the Cooper Kupp DK Metcalf trade-off, right?
Absolutely.
They got to be. Cooper Kupp is looking immaculate. And, I mean, the fact that Sam Darnold is growing up the way that he is really crazy. TJ Watt in this game, 4 pressures, 2 hits, no sacks. Got to give a hats off to that Seattle offensive line being able to stifle Cam Hayward. Same thing with TJ Watt. And that TJ Watt was actually graded at 71.4 by PFF. This is a D-line that led the league in pressure rate coming in. And he didn't get many favorable matchups in this game or really specialized stunts, alignments that kind of generate, a more disruption. How are you a Mike Tomlin-led football team and you do not know about that touchdown situation? Mike Tomlin just took a hit on his head coaching rankings because that player decided to touch the ball and let the Seahawks recover it. The ball is live after the 10-yard roll, or 10 yards. And if the other team touches it, that is a live ball for the other team to come and score. So I was baffled when I saw the play, and then I said, that guy's head coach is Mike Tomlin. How are you a Mike Tomlin-led football team? And that's clearly on the player, right? But just absolutely insane to not know that kickoff touchdown situation. Aaron Rodgers is not the same when he's on the move. Like, we knew that. But if in case you guys were unsure, go take a look at that wobbly 3rd and 6 scramble with about 8 minutes to go. I mean, he looked absolutely scared there at the end. He pulled up. He braced for the hit. Aaron Rodgers has no business moving around outside of the pocket like that. And then I just want to give some flowers to Sam Darnold as well before we get into college ball. He is just becoming a grown-up again. Like I said, right in front of our eyes. He had a 3rd and 6 spin away from the pressure, completion for the first down, the deep ball to JSN to basically seal it. And that was with 2 sacks, 5 hits, and 7 pressures on him from that Steelers defensive line in that football game. Let's flop over to an insane week 3 of college football as LSU is officially the most overrated, overhyped number 3 team in the nation. They squeak past Florida of all teams after DJ Lagway throws 5 interceptions. We've had a very colorful conversation about that Florida quarterback. LSU sneaks past 20-10. What's going on in Death Valley, bro? Is Billy Napier that solid? Is DJ Lagway really this bad? Answer them at once. Let me know.
Well, first of all, DJ Lagway sucks. DJ Lagway is the worst quarterback in the SEC, probably. 5 interceptions against LSU. The one at the end there on 3rd down, just trying to do too much. They're down 10. All you need to do is just get about 5-6 yards on that play, maybe 7, get your kicker in the field goal range and go from there. And he throws it into triple coverage and he airmailed it, right? Go back several possessions earlier at the end of the half. Again, just trying to get too much in such a short amount of time. He throws it into double or triple coverage earlier at the end of the first half, which led to 3 points for LSU.
That end zone INT
at the end of the first half, going into the second half as well. DJ Lagway sucks. He threw 5 picks. And at the end of the broadcast, they're like, do you move on from Lagway? And they're like, no. Yeah, you do. Like, and I get it. The second string quarterback is probably not that good either. There's a reason why he's the second string. But DJ Lagway sucks. And in the SEC, like,
that type of quarterback play will get you fired.
On DJ Lagway. And if Billy Napier wants to keep his job and live to see the 2026 season, DJ Lagway needs to not suit up. I don't mean move down the depth chart. DJ Lagway should not suit up next week. Like, he needs to sit down and relearn how to read defenses and relearn how to make decisions because he's god awful. He's god awful. Now, you take a look at the LSU side of things. The LSU defense, I thought, looked really, really good. I'm going to mention that again later on in the show. But their offense is the problem. They reminded me a lot about they're reminding me of the Minnesota Vikings right now, who so far through 2 weeks of football. Last week it didn't cost them against the Bears because the Bears suck, but it cost them this week against the Falcons. Their offense has looked anemic, and when you have Garrett Nussmeier as your quarterback, as talented as he is, there is no reason for this offense to be looking as stale and as stagnant as their offense has looked so far through the first 3 weeks of football. Now, again, I will give credit where credit is due. Spears had a pick 6 and another pick to boot as well. And again, they look great against DJ Lagway getting 5 picks. But again, Nussmeier's supposed to be a Heisman candidate, and he hasn't looked great this season. The LSU offense hasn't looked great this season. And as much as I want to think that the LSU Tigers could be a team to watch out for as a potential opponent for Georgia in the SEC championship game, as we've talked about previously, their offense has to be better. Their defense, I think, is there. Their offense, not so much. So
their defense is there, which is crazy because Brian Kelly had a bad defense over the last few years.
Yeah, and so it's lovely to see that they have championship level defense, but it seems like they forgot how to play offense. So they got to figure it out, and they got to figure it out quick because if their offense doesn't get it together, their ceiling is an SEC championship runner up, rather than potentially playing in the national championship in January. So we'll see how things go.
Yeah, very well said on all the takeaways there, man. Yes, DJ Lagway is terrible. When you marry yourself to a recruiting ranking like that and you go off potential, we've talked about it here on NFL with AJL. Potential is good for one thing in the sport of football. It is getting coaches fired. It is getting you not to the starting job, because if you don't have the commitment, if you don't have the execution, if you don't have the schematics, the build, the mindset to be a quarterback, which DJ Lagway unfortunately does not possess a lot of those, not as a human, as the football player. DJ Lagway was the most overhyped player coming into college football this year. You're going to try to tell me that's one of the top quarterbacks in football coming into the year after five interceptions, 3 in the second half, 2 in the fourth quarter? They were all horrible. Throwing into triple coverage, he looks lost in the pocket. 4 of his 5 INTs came on third down. That's money downs. And his decision-making was awful all game long. Those 5 interceptions made him the first Florida quarterback to throw that many since 1992, brother. You have to go back before the internet was really prominent to find a Florida quarterback that did that. LSU is also the most overhyped team in college football right now. I am so tired of watching them squeak by mediocre competition over these last couple of weeks after you beat Clemson, who is not as impressive, and you stay number 3? You keep it close with Louisiana Tech? You cause 5 interceptions against Florida, and you only score 10 points off of 5 turnovers, 20 points total in the game? This is the 3rd best team in the country? But Georgia can come out, and yes, like hell, I'm biased because I watch these games, not just because I'm a Georgia fan. Georgia comes out, deals with almost a 2-hour lightning delay against Austin Peay, handles Tennessee, which you get bumped up in the ranking for that. But LSU can play that way and stay? And Georgia can fall after beating another lesser team in Austin Peay worse? I mean, we also saw Alabama still be ranked after losing to Florida State. I didn't understand how Florida State was not a top 10 team when the first AP poll came out. You've got Notre Dame 0-2 as the number 24 team. I just think the committee is probably going to gear up to really piss us off this year. Like, genuinely. Because I don't understand how a team like LSU is truly the 3rd best team in the country with the way that they just played. It's so touch and go with the top 25, and like, I know that, but these rankings are looked at week over week. When Ward Manuel a couple of years ago was trying to explain the FSU snub, oh, well, we look at how well you've played and all of your top matchups versus your unranked people and when you lost and how much you lost by. Y'all gonna take a look at this? Because now the committee's going to try to convince us for the rest of the year, and we're going to get into Notre Dame and Texas A&M in just a second, but Notre Dame being number 24, they don't play they don't play another solid game for the rest of the year. USC's number 25 right now. That game's a month away. So now we get to see how the committee is going to try to job Notre Dame into the top 12 after they're number 24 with no wins in the college football season. Okay, off my soapbox. Let's get back to this game. Lagway's first interception was horrible. And then you come out with a 3-and-out by LSU. Then they get bailed out on a holding call that negates the huge 88-yard touchdown throw for DJ Lagway, into which it should have been really a 20-17 game at not that point. But as this game played out, and this one I just really thought was kind of ugly for both teams. Like, neither team had a 3rd down conversion until 20 minutes of game time in. The entire first quarter and 5 minutes through the second quarter. And we had no 3rd down conversions. Garrett Nussmeier threw a dropped INT as well at the beginning of the 3rd quarter. Like, they definitely got bailed out by that. LSU had 1 offensive touchdown in this game, Marcus, and it took them 7.5 minutes to go in the first half to get it. The pick 6 was their only points of the second half. And they had 3 interceptions in the second half and 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter on DJ Lagway. And you're telling me that Brian Kelly-led offense? I get it. Malik Neighbors gone. BTJ is gone. Jaden Daniels is gone. I'm not trying to give you irrelevant information here, but this is Brian Kelly we're talking about. Like, we talk about Billy Napier keeping his job. How much longer does Brian Kelly get to do this type of stuff? I mean, their offense went almost the final 40 minutes of game time with no points. And that's the number 3 team? The sloppy fumble with 11 minutes to go, and then Garrett Nussmeier throws another DJ Lagway-type interception with just a holding being called, which was crazy within itself. Not another INT. That was Nussmeier's only INT of the game. But LSU's offense was just inefficient. It was low volume. They had 52 plays, and they went 4 for 14 on 3rd down. They couldn't sustain drives. The defense and the special teams, which really was doing the field position work, they did the heavy lifting. Brian Kelly even had the nerve to get pissed in the post-game presser because we're asking you, how do you score 10? How are you scoring an average of a safety off of 5 interceptions?
No, that's
at
a great
home in
point.
Death Valley.
It's a great
At
point.
home in Death Valley. You're really getting irritated about that? This is the same Brian Kelly who banged his hand on the table when you lost to Miller Moss and Lincoln Riley and USC, who are an absolute joke right now in college football. But again, that's the number 3 team. Plus, you didn't get many extra possessions to chew on. Like this shows you why LSU is not the number 3 team, Marcus. Florida dominated time of possession, 37 minutes and 46 seconds to 22 minutes and 14 seconds. They ran 76 plays to LSU's 52, which clearly means LSU had fewer total chances to pile on points despite the turnovers. So it's like, did they really have fewer chances? The plays might show it, but they stole 5 possessions. They stole 5.
Yeah.
Most teams just want to steal 1, maybe 2. They stole 5. 5 times the average that most teams want to steal in a game. And Florida held the ball for 62% of this game. You had several short LSU possessions and punts between the interceptions from DJ Lagway. You were outgained 366 to 316, and you still lost. You better be writing a love letter to DJ Lagway and Billy Napier, who, speaking of the Florida head coach and Billy Napier, I can't even believe, like, it's what you're supposed to do as a head coach to give your guy confidence, but publicly backing DJ Lagway. But it's clearly conditional because he admitted that coaching is responsible and signaled that the staff has to be cleaner. There has to be better play calls. There has to be better timing. So this is huge to me. I've got my eye all over this, and I'm just floored genuinely that LSU is really being dubbed as the 3rd best team in college football right now. Texas A&M wins an absolute barn burner over Notre Dame, who I picked, but I thought Marcus Freeman was that guy, but I think he got really outcoached in this one, especially with the Notre Dame defense that was on lock last year in the college football playoffs. Texas A&M comes out and wins 41-40 behind a sneaky Heisman candidate, possibly, a Marcel Reed, and Mario Carver erupts in this game, 7 catches for 207 yards. He had an 86-yard touchdown score. What was your opinion on arguably the 2nd best college football game of the weekend besides Georgia and Tennessee?
So I think Notre Dame's shot at making it to the playoffs is officially done, right? And this is one of the challenges of being an independent and not being in a conference. I don't see a scenario where Notre Dame makes it back to the college football playoff, even if they win out and finish the season 10-2. When you start the season off 0-2 with losses to Miami and then a home loss, a loss on the road to Miami and then a loss at home to Texas A&M, there's no way that the committee, when the time comes, can justify saying that Notre Dame is one of the 12 best teams in the country. So unfortunately for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, their ceiling is the Duke Mayo Bowl or whatever nonsense bowl game they get at the end of the season. And it's unfortunate. This is also why these first 2 weeks of the season,
Mayo Bowl.
Yeah, Duke Mayo Bowl. Give it to them. These first 2 weeks of the season are also exactly why people have been telling Notre Dame football to be like Notre Dame other programs and get in the ACC. This is exactly why. Because now you have 2 losses and you don't have a Power 5, or I guess a Big 4 conference schedule to fall back on to go get you some notable wins. You don't have a schedule where you can see a Clemson or see maybe a Florida State or see even maybe a Duke or even a Georgia Tech after their big win and try to get some of that notoriety back. You don't have a game against an Ohio State or an Oregon or even a USC or a Penn State to try to get some notoriety back and boost your resume back up. You don't have a schedule where you can match up against maybe Tennessee or Georgia or even Florida or any of those other SEC teams to try to boost your resume. You now have the unfortunate reality of potentially winning 10 straight and missing the college football playoff because you lost a game on the road in Miami you had no business losing, and you lost a game at home against Texas A&M you had no business losing. This is why we've been saying, yo, Notre Dame, you should probably hop in the ACC. Yo, Notre Dame, you should probably hop in the Big Ten. This is why. Because now your schedule for the rest of the way, when you have some of those opponents, I believe they do have a game against SEC, or I'm not SEC. I'm sorry, they have a game against
USC October 18th.
USC. Right, they have a game against Purdue. You got a game against Arkansas. You got a game against Syracuse, who has been somewhat kind of good. Like you have games coming up where you can get some wins, but are those wins going to be enough to undo a 3-point loss on the road in Miami? Are those wins going to be enough to undo a 1-point loss at home in Texas A&M? A game you lost because your backup QB couldn't hold a snap? a game that you had no business losing in the first place. So unfortunately, Notre Dame, they're not making the college football playoff, because even if they do beat Purdue, Arkansas, Boise State, NC State, USC, Boston College, Navy, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, and Stanford, that resume with those 2 losses isn't going to be enough to compete against an SEC team. A third or fourth SEC team trying to make it into the college football playoff. It's not going to be enough to go up against a third or fourth even Big Ten school trying to make it into the college football playoff. Honestly, it might not even be enough to undo whatever a Big 12 school might have other than the Big 12 champion as far as making it to the college football playoff. So I'm going to say good luck to Marcus Freeman and good luck to the Fighting Irish, but the only chance that you're going to make it to the playoffs in South Bend is if every other team, and by every other team, I quite literally mean every other team that is a legitimate championship contender, drops a game or 2, maybe 3 that they have no business dropping. Other than that, see you in the Duke Mayo Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl or the Pop-Tart Bowl or something, but you won't be playing in the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, or any other bowl that gets you one step closer to winning yourselves a national championship. That's for sure.
Well said, bro. Very, very well said, because that is exactly what I was encapsulating on the inside as I watched Notre Dame come into number 24. Because you know what the committee's going to do, right? The committee is going to take those losses that you say you had no business losing by 1 point to A&M at home. You had no business losing by 3 points to Miami on the road. But they're going to say, oh no, Miami was a top team at the time. Texas was a top team at the time, which they should not have lost those games because they were favorites. I picked them to win. Marcus Freeman, up until this game possibly, was one of the better coaches in football. Now, this one game doesn't define him, but you got outcoached by Mike Elko? And you're Marcus Freeman? You just played in a national championship last year. So I agree with you. Like, USC's number 25 right now, but they don't play them until October 18th. Arkansas, SEC team, like, yeah, you might get the benefit there, but I'm not buying this Purdue. I'm not buying this Syracuse. Like, yeah, maybe Syracuse can hype you up, but yes, literally, quite literally everybody, needs to be, that's in that top 12, they need to have a gaff, because Notre Dame's already got 2 of them. And they don't have any schedule worth a flip to be able to try to dig themselves back into this one. And that's unfortunate, but Notre Dame will get the bias from the committee. Notre Dame will most definitely somehow, some way, probably get worked into that. I hope they don't. They change the rules to keep it out, but they also benefit, and they are cursed by the fact of being in a non-conference. I think it would be awesome if we saw Notre Dame just finally come into this one. I mean, blocking a punt and returning it for a touchdown on your first defensive drive just to lose has to sting. Getting an interception up early by 7 and not being able to make that more of a lead and lose has to sting. Being up 24-14 with 5 minutes to go in the first half and losing as Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish has to sting, because they have the best running back tandem in college football right now in Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love, and you won't prove me wrong otherwise. If Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson were still in college football, then it would go to them, and it was them last year. But they scooted on out to the league, and we're going to watch Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love go to the NFL and be great running backs as well. But Marcel Reed, that quarterback coming onto the scene last year for Texas A&M, he is the real deal when he is needed, and I think that we could be looking at Texas A&M as a sleeper SEC championship team. And I wanted to say that about them last year, but I was not sold enough, because Mario Craver is insane when he's in space. 7 catches, 207 yards, an 86-yard touchdown. All Texas A&M did was respond when they needed to, bro. Whether it was Marcel Reed's early turnover or when they needed to answer it with touchdowns. Notre Dame wasted an absolute huge red zone trip at the start of the second quarter, and they only came away with 3 points. I thought that was huge. But speaking of Texas A&M as a sleeper SEC championship team, Marcel Reed, Le'Veon Moss, Concepcion, and Carver could be absolutely nasty heading into the thick of the season. I think Notre Dame's quarterback situation now with Carr is going to really decide how they play out the rest of this year, because he had an awful interception when he could have been mobile and scrambled for a huge play. But Texas A&M just wasn't going to let that happen, because beforehand, Texas A&M just scored to make it 24-21, and then they score another touchdown on the interception to make it 14 unanswered points. Notre Dame is still able to get it back into this one, but they had to dig themselves out of unnecessary holes time and time and time again. And Texas A&M's defense came around. I mean, they had a huge stop at the end of the third quarter on 4th and 1. Direct snap goes right into Jeremiah Love, I believe. Big hit at the line to gain. I mean, they turned into, which ended up turning into the game-tying field goal at the end of the third quarter for Notre Dame. And Notre Dame had Texas A&M 3rd and 12 with 11 minutes to go. Texas A&M was 0 for 3 with an average of 7 yards to go on 3rd down in the half. And no Notre Dame defense folded right there. That Notre Dame defense, who I know had players go to the league, I know they lost guys like Benjamin Morrison to the draft last year, who was going to be very solid with the Bucs. That defense that led football in turnovers and led football in points off turnovers. And I don't think they turned over anybody more. Nobody had more turnovers than the Notre Dame defense in the college football playoffs last year. And that defense ended up having you fold in this game. That led to another game-tying field goal from Texas A&M. And then you botched the snap. You said it well. You missed the extra point. You end up losing by one. That is mental focus. I'm not going to say that's coaching because Marcus Freeman can't prevent that, but you got to do better. You got to do better because the second play on defense after that, you have another chunk play given up to Craver, then a defensive holding. It was just bad situational football for Notre Dame all night long. And they capped it off with another defensive gaffe to give up the game-winning touchdown as time basically expired. So I said it, and I will say it again, Texas A&M is officially an SEC championship sleeper. And the downfall of Dabo Swinney, you called it, my brother, is upon us. Clemson football is 1-2. They could easily be 0-3 as they fall to Georgia Tech 24-21 as time expires, and really a classic ACC matchup. What's your thoughts on this one, brother? Because Dabo Swinney, he'll never get fired, but he's damn sure got to be on the hot seat after these 3 weeks.
So Notre Dame's not making the playoffs. Neither is Clemson. You do not lose in week 1, barely beat Troy in week 2, and then lose to Georgia Tech in week 3 and make the playoffs. So again, Duke Mayo Bowl, Military Bowl, some other bowl, but it won't be one of the bowls that just helps decide a national champion. I think the unfortunate part, though, about Clemson losing and Clemson being in this position is think about some of the other teams in the ACC who have a legitimate shot at maybe making some noise. We've talked about Tommy Castellano in Florida State, right? Take a look at Louisville, who right now are 2-0. Take a look at Miami right now, who are undefeated. Take a look even as a team like Georgia Tech, a team like SMU, right, who only has 1 loss on the season thanks to an absolute great game against, I believe, against Baylor, where they ended up losing at the end there. Even take a look at a team maybe like Cal, right? You know what Clemson being 1-2 does for all of those schools? It makes the validity of beating Clemson, it actually makes it worse because Clemson's the flagship program. Clemson's supposed to be the bread and butter of the ACC. Clemson's the measuring stick of the ACC. And so now, even if Clemson gets better as the season goes on, it doesn't matter if Florida State's going to beat Clemson. It won't matter if Miami potentially beats Clemson. It won't matter if SMU maybe matches up with and beats Clemson because the committee's going to say, yeah, well, Georgia Tech beat Clemson too. And Clemson almost lost to Troy. Oh, and by the way, Clemson lost their first game of the season. So the validity of the ACC as a Power 4 conference now, and I will say the weakest of the Power 4 conferences already, arguably, now your flagship program is 1-2, losing games they have no business losing. I feel bad for Tommy Castellanos and the Florida State Seminoles. I feel bad even for Carson Beck and the Miami Hurricanes. I feel bad for SMU. I feel bad for some of these other teams who are having strong, legitimate seasons right now, 3 weeks into the season, where now the committee's going to look at Clemson and be like, yeah, well, if that's supposed to be the best team in the conference, if all these other teams beat them, are you really worthy of making the college football playoff? Because at that point, you're on the same level of a Georgia Tech. You're on the same level of a Troy even. And we know that these teams aren't on those teams level, but that's how the committee is going to compare it. So this isn't just no longer a playoff season now for the Clemson Tigers. This makes the road to the college football playoff for Florida State, for Louisville, for a team like Miami, even for a team like SMU, or like I said, even Cal, that much harder. And I feel bad because as I said to you already after the first week or two of the season, I think Tommy Castellano is one of the quarterbacks that holds the keys to the kingdom as far as what happens in the college football playoff this season. And I already thought that Clemson or that Florida State would be the team to beat in the ACC, but now the validity of the ACC is taking a shot because their flagship program is struggling so much. So we'll see how the season progresses. We'll see if they can turn it around. But again, just like with Notre Dame, even if they do turn it around, when you have two major shortcomings like this early into the season that very easily could be 3, this is a team who could very easily be 0-3 right now. Very easily could be 0-3 right now. It's tough. And unfortunately, this could be a situation where one bad apple in the Clemson Tigers could spoil the entire ACC bunch.
Clemson is officially no longer the standard of the ACC. And respectfully, I think teams like Florida State and teams like Miami are just going to come around this year, and they're going to be the ones to really take the cake home, because you do not have any excuse as the Clemson Tigers coming out like this. I mean, yeah, you've played solid teams outside of Troy because Georgia Tech is good. Yeah. And LSU is good. But then it's like, well, when you look at how LSU just played this week and last week, it's like, how much validity can you actually give to it? So, yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, bro. The way that things can shake out, and it's not going to really help other teams' cases when Clemson's looking this week. Again, it's going to be funny to see how the committee just really views this. But, Georgia Tech came out hot. I mean, they just marched down the field, multiple good plays, chunk plays, exposing that Clemson defense. I mean, Haynes King, just an absolute menace. I respect them going for it on 4th and 2 to open the game, but you also could have taken your points. That screenplay was pretty bad, and that could have came back to bite them. Thankfully, you force a turnover on Clemson early, and then you take your field goal. So you could have potentially nothing right there. I would have liked to see Brent Key situationally coach a little better in that moment. But Clemson calling their own timeout and then missing the field goal shows that they were just absolutely shaking in their boots, Bobby Dodd Stadium. And there was no question about that. Haynes King overshot Stockton at first on the deep shot. Then they realized that busted coverage. They dialed it up again. Big completion to end the first quarter, which was completely controlled by Georgia Tech. And then you opened up the second with the rushing touchdown. Clemson's defense just gave up a lot of open, easy passes for Haynes King, and they literally said coming in that their game plan was to make Haynes King throw the ball. He did, but he also ran the ball very well in this one. Speaking of quarterback play, Cade Klubnik held the ball forever in this football game. I mean, Cade Klubnik was just giving
another very bad, very overrated quarterback heading into the season.
Cade Klubnik was giving us his best Caleb Williams, Justin Fields holding the ball impression that he could. And it was so crazy because Brent Key actually came into this game 6-1 versus ranked ACC opponents. But as he was trailing going into the fourth quarter, he had a 4-13 record up until he won this game. Georgia Tech just put up a heck of a goal line stand in the final 2 minutes of the first half, too, barely letting Klubnik slip across on the fourth down. And that was Clemson's really sole chance to swing the game back in their favor. And I'm sorry, but Clemson just never felt like they were truly in this football game. Clemson came out with the big play jet sweep for a first down, which is exactly what they needed. But then you had multiple junk plays to tie it up right out of the half until Cade Klubnik, stares down the slant. He's read like a book on the INT. I mean, just an awful read by him, and it was a great play by number 9 in Daniels. He did get smacked on that 70-plus yard touchdown throw to Wesco. Kudos to him for hanging in the pocket there. And just like that, you had 14 unanswered for Clemson with Cade Klubnik. I'm struggling with that name right now. Not playing super well and also having a couple of turnovers.
Yeah.
I thought Stockton dropping the wide open pass in the middle of the third quarter could have really been major for Georgia Tech, too. Speaking of that, they let up tons of pressure in the second half, mainly at the end of the third quarter, and getting very conservative with their screenplays. I thought that was going to be kind of a downfall of Georgia Tech. And then you decide to take the ball out of your best player's hands, your quarterback and your running back, Jamal Haynes and Haynes King, without question, and you decide to run a trick play tush push with your struggling tight end. That really could have done Brent Key in on that one. That was a huge coaching gaffe. We have to ask the real question. It's Haynes King, the best running quarterback in college football right now. The vision, the knowledge, the decision-making, the power, the grit. I mean, Haynes King is a very, very good running quarterback right now in college football. Like I said, Dabo Swinney was 162-8 leading while entering the fourth quarter. Brent Key was 4-13 in the same situation. Dabo Swinney had won 95% of his football games in that situation until this game happened. Brent Key had only won 4 times in those situations until the 5th time happened in this game. I don't understand why Dabo Swinney is not calling a timeout with the clock ticking down. Some people are like, why would you call timeout? Why would you help them? Why are you not trying to help yourself? You let the clock run all the way down from a minute to the end of the game. You didn't try to ice the kicker. You cannot take your timeouts home with you. And you're just going to let him bleed it out. You had 2 of them. You could have at least called a timeout to stop the momentum flowing or or something. I don't even understand people's arguments of why would you help them out by calling a timeout? You need the time. They literally kicked the field goal to win the game as time expired. That is perfect clock management. I don't get it. Like I said, you're beat by number 12 in LSU week 1. You're down 16-3 at halftime to Troy, and now you lose an unranked Georgia Tech while being number 3. Clemson's 1-2 for the first time in 11 seasons. That's huge. They go from 13-0 in this game for Clemson. Now it's 21-13, and then you're losing 24-21, taking the huge L. Your coach is on the hot seat. Marcus, let's discuss our top college football national championship contenders right here on episode 117. I think it's a super 6. If you think it's less, that's totally cool with me. Who you got? Rank them for me, and just give me all you got here, bro, because the fact that I know you have LSU in here is abominable.
You know I have LSU in here, but here's why.
Because of that shit you said earlier. I'm going to talk about them later in the show.
Well, so listen,
we'll talk about them
number
right
5.
now.
So if we're ranking college football championship contenders, I do have LSU at number 5.
You're smiling as you say it. You're not even serious, bro.
I am, because I believe in the potential of Garrett Nussmeier, and I don't think that this LSU offense is going to look like this forever. I do think as the season progresses, they're going to get better. My top 5 college football championship contenders, number 5, I have LSU. I know that we did kind of rip them a new one earlier with their offense, but I don't think their offense is going to be like this forever, right? I do think Garrett Nussmeier is going to turn around. And again, as the old saying go, defense wins championships. And I think LSU's defense has the potential to be one of the best in the nation. And if they can get some signature wins, I think they already have one against LSU, although I don't know if you're going to, they already have one against Clemson. I don't know if you can consider it a signature win, considering that Clemson is 1-2 now. But if they can pick up a signature SEC win or 2 later on in the season, I think that definitely raises their stock. At number 4, it's Penn State, and it's Penn State because it has to be, not necessarily because they've done anything this season that's impressive. You and I talked about this earlier on before we even started doing shows. I did not agree at all with Penn State being the number 2 ranked team in the country. They've handled business so far this year, right? They are talented. They have talent on both sides of the ball, and they've beaten up on the teams they need to beat up on. I'm going to keep saying it because this is quite literally the most important game, I would say, in the entire college football universe. Penn State versus Oregon determines everything. Penn State has a lot to prove in that game. It is a home game for them. And as I'm sure we all know, if you don't know already, it is the College Game Day game. College Game Day will be in Happy Valley September 27th for that game. There's no way they're not going to be at Penn State.
And then we got Georgia, Alabama that day too.
Yeah, so maybe they're going to be there, but I would imagine that this potentially being a top 5 matchup between Oregon and Penn State, they'll be at Penn State. But then again, you can never ignore Georgia and Alabama.
I'm pretty sure they are going to be. I feel like I watched them drop a teaser.
Especially when Nick Saban is on the panel, you probably can't. But it's their whiteout game. That's why I've been saying they're going to be there. It hasn't been officially announced, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be at Penn State's whiteout game. They're never not at Penn State's whiteout game. So Penn State's number 4 because they have to be. At number 3, you're going to love this. Go Dogs. It's the Georgia Bulldogs. I said it when we reacted to Georgia beating Tennessee. Gunnar Stockton gives them everything at the quarterback position they didn't have last year with Carson Beck. And I'll even go as far to say is he even gives them some things at the quarterback position that they didn't even have when they were winning championships with Stetson Bennett. The throw that he made on 4th down, deep down the sideline, I think is the best throw from a quarterback we've seen so far for the first 3 weeks of this season. And if he continues to play at the level that we saw him play at, if they continue to lean on Zachariah Branch, and if this running game continues to be what it was against Tennessee, you can't deny the ceiling of the Georgia Bulldogs as potentially winning themselves a national championship. At number 2, it has to be Oregon. Again, they have done everything they needed to do up to this point. They beat down Montana State. They beat down Northwestern. They beat down Oklahoma State. Again, they had that big game coming up September 27th against Penn State. The winner of Oregon and Penn State is going to be the team that faces Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game this season, assuming Ohio State doesn't slip up along the way. They're the best team in the country. We know they're not going to slip up along the way. I am going to go as far as say, as while I agree with you that the best running back duo in the country belongs to Notre Dame, I think the best running back room, the entire depth chart, belongs to the Oregon Ducks. Every single running back in our running back room does something special, does something uniquely better than the rest, and together it's a really, really, really interesting room. Defensively also, when we're coming into the season, you're talking about teams that have the best defense in the country. Oregon's name didn't come up a lot. And I don't know why, because not only did Oregon keep most of their elite defense from last year, all of our defensive transfers coming in who are starters were arguably the best or second best player on the defense they came from last season. So Oregon's defense is just as good as it was last season, if not better. Again, not as many big tests on the schedule in the Big Ten, but a game against Illinois could be an interesting one outside of this, the Penn State game. Of course, number one is going to be the Ohio State Buckeyes. They should have been the number one ranked team in the poll to start off the season. They proved they were the best team in the country after beating Texas and what I thought would have been a lot bigger of a beatdown than what it actually turned out to be as far as just winning wise. And as I said to you before, and I will say it again, if Julian Sayin, because I'm top 15 quarterback in the country, write the Ohio State Buckeyes name on the trophy and give it to them now. And I'm saying that to you as an Oregon Ducks fan because their defense is legit. Jeremiah Smith is legit. All Julian Sayin has to do is get a little bit more elite. And you are talking about a very, very, very dangerous Ohio State Buckeyes program and a very, very, very virtually unstoppable Ohio State offense. Those are my 5.
Well said. I like how you didn't have Miami in there, did you?
I did not have Miami in there. No.
That's
it could
okay.
have gone either way between Miami and LSU, I will be honest with you.
Yeah, that's crazy. You have LSU over Miami?
I am not a Carson Beck. I'm not a Carson Beck guy at all.
You'll not never a Carson Becker?
You'll never see me show love to Carson Beck ever.
He's not a Carson Becker, ladies and gentlemen.
No, not in this life or any other. It's not happening.
He is a non-Becker.
No. Yeah. You'll never see
These
it
are the top 5 national champions. You're hilarious.
You'll never see it happen. Miami. I promise.
Oh, goodness. Oh. These are my top 5 national championship contenders for college football right now. At number 5, give me FSU. The way that they came out to start the season, the way that they looked against, I think it was Eastern Texas, Eastern Tennessee, A&M. Tommy Castellanos is snapping. They have great offensive weapons. Mike Norvell is totally back. They've got the great defensive coordinator who ran the best defense in college football last year. They have Gus Malzahn, and I just think FSU football is totally back. I believe they can win the ACC. They are an immaculate team right now. At number 4, give me my Georgia Bulldogs. The way that they just looked against Tennessee is undeniable. Yes, the defense sold you, and then you get back in the game, and then the defense sells you again. Sorry, man.
All good.
And then the defense sells you again. But like you just said, Gunnar Stockton putting up an absolute clinic in this game when he's needed. Mike Bobo finding that freshman exploitation on the outside with the corner, dropping it in the bucket to Humphreys, came out and doing it on the first play. I know you said that Gunnar Stockton had that great throw. Garrett Nussmeier also kind of making throws like that in the prior weeks too. You got to love what you're seeing out of the Dogs right now. At number 3, as much as I hate to say it, I've got the Miami Hurricanes coming out and beating Notre Dame and coming out and beating USF. Those are probably the 2 best wins in college football right now, and I have to give them credit. Mario Cristobal, Carson Beck, they are doing their thing. I am not a Carson Becker whatsoever, but I do not think that you can deny the Miami Hurricanes and the way that they're playing, representing the ACC, being 3-0. At number 2, give me Oregon. Dante Moore is absolutely snapping. You mentioned the running back room that they have there. Oregon is an undeniable contender right now. You cannot look at what they're doing across the board and have the Heisman contender and Dante Moore and that head coach and Dan Lanning in a defense who does thankfully look better this year. Last year, they were not very good. We saw what they gave up to Ohio State, and we saw what they gave up to Ohio State in the first game as well. And we saw other teams potentially boat race Oregon to the end. Were they great? Yes, but there were plenty of times where they gave up a lot of points. That doesn't potentially seem to be the case this year. And at number 1, it's the Ohio State Buckeyes. The Texas win, impressive. Yes, you open the season. Second ever top 3 AP matchup we've had to open the year in the AP poll era. We know all the stats that were around it. You stifle Arch Manning. You still have an excellent coaching staff. If Julian Sayin can take the leap and have that comfort in Jeremiah Smith and have Caleb Downs on the defensive side of the ball, them sporting arguably the 2 best players in college football, and a top coach in Ryan Day who's finally getting his flowers, I think that's undoubtedly the top 5 contenders in the college football season right now. It's official. Arch Manning potentially sucks. He struggled again against UTEP, 11 of 25, 114 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns, and an interception. It's no shocker that Arch Manning did his best in this game with his legs. Steve Sarkisian is still continuing to not get the best out of Arch Manning in critical situations. We saw it in the Ohio State game. We saw it in this game as well. It is very unfortunate for what is happening. He had a brutal stretch early in this game. Reports say he had 10 straight incompletions through part of the first half. Obviously, he was booed. He was booed by the crowd, which was horrible, raining down from the Texas fans. He threw an end zone interception in the first half, which was hideous, and he had really no business trying to extend the play like that. 4th and 5 early in the game. He had that ugly sidearm off-platform throw wide of the receiver with bad footwork. Like, that's his trademark. His obsession for the bad move right now comes out in those types of plays. He overthrew another wide open touchdown on 4th down. And again, what do you know? Arch Manning is his best on the move, and he had better production on the ground than through the air. He's a better runner than thrower right now of the football, and he's a Manning. Arch Manning has been extremely disappointing to start the college football season. I overreacted in week 1, and I said that he wasn't a first-round talent, and after this game against UTEP, I don't know if he's proven me wrong. It's his last-minute decision-making, like he's trying to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or something, and he just has to let things work out in his favor, and he is not doing that at a high level. They're always inaccurate throws or ugly turnover-worthy throws. That was arguably the worst offensive performance under Steve Sarkisian next to the Ohio State opener that we've ever seen. This is some crazy news around Shedeur Sanders right now. The Ravens plan to take Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, but before Baltimore could turn in the card, the former Colorado quarterback came up and he let it be known that he did not want to be on a roster with a 2-time MVP in Lamar Jackson, in a first-team All-Pro in Lamar Jackson, where he would be a backup. So you know what that landed Shedeur Sanders? It landed him with arguably the worst franchise in the NFL right now. With Joe Flacco to look up to, who is not a bad quarterback. With Dillon Gabriel to compete with, who he had no business competing with because he is a much better quarterback than Dillon Gabriel. I saw it in college. I saw it in the preseason, which Dillon Gabriel looked good. But this should be Shedeur Sanders' team to take home, and we know that. And because you don't want to be a backup in arguably a top 3 franchise with the way they are ran in the National Football League with the Baltimore Ravens, you don't want John Harbaugh as your coach. No slouch to Kevin Stefanski, who's a 2-timer for the Coach of the Year award. But you don't want to learn from Lamar Jackson? You don't want to be a potential Super Bowl contender in your rookie year and wave it around like you do the Rolex when you score a touchdown? You could be waving a Super Bowl ring at the end of this season. Just my 2 cents, though. You don't want to be a backup, but now you're a 3rd and 4th stringer with the Cleveland Browns. Come on, Shedeur. It makes truthers like me stick out like a sore thumb out here. Joe Burrow is injured yet again, and this is the biggest disappointment out of a star quarterback we may have seen in the recent years of the National Football League. He needs surgery. He is going to miss 3 months, and the Bengals have no excuses now. The Bengals might officially be the worst franchise in the NFL when it comes to taking care of their star players because you stifled the Trey Hendrickson thing. You pay Jamar Chase and T. Higgins late, which ends up leading you to pay the top wide receiver 1 contract and the top wide receiver 2 contract ever in NFL history. You even go through a multi-million-dollar offensive line rebuild just to have Joe Burrow hurt like this again. The rookie year ACL and the 2025 turf toe are textbook pocket collapse, sack injuries. The 2021 pinky came on a sack fumble, which was, again, pressure. The Super Bowl MCL was confirmed, but framed as cumulative in-game hits. But that playoff run, he took a record 19 postseason sacks, 9 sacks to Tennessee in the first round, 7 sacks in the Super Bowl to Aaron Donald, who was all over him. That's a pass protection problem. His wrist in 2023 was a torn ligament during a throw, not clearly caused by an O-lineman. The calf in 2023, the appendix in 2022 are unrelated to contact. But most of Joe Burrow's serious injuries go back to pressure and sacks, even after a multi-year, multi-million-dollar offensive line rebuild. Cincinnati did its job spending big. They went and got Kappa and Karras and Collins in 2022. They went and got Orlando Brown Jr. in 2023. They went and looked for Amarius Mims and got him in 2024. But the margin for error is still razor thin when Joe Burrow holds the ball and the pocket wobbles. And again, this man took a playoff record 19 sacks when they went to the Super Bowl. That's the smoking gun. That's the X factor. That's the damning piece of evidence. It's just absolutely horrible to see it shake out that way. Last topic here. Lanorris Sellers is officially injured for the South Carolina Gamecocks. He did get concussed in the game against Vanderbilt where they lost 31-7. I think they unfairly got dropped out of the top 25 because he was only 6 for 7 with 97 yards when he left the game. So Lanorris Sellers is absolutely snapping, but the committee can come in here and leave Notre Dame as number 24. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. South Carolina's record without Lanorris Sellers could be absolutely treacherous because hold on, I'm trying to pull it up. No, bro. Hold on, y'all. I'm going to clip this out. This is kind of a sloppy job, but this is why we have editing. The easiness of South Carolina's schedule is really behind them because you got Mizzou, Kentucky. You're at Mizzou, home against Kentucky, at LSU, home against Oklahoma, home against Alabama, at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M, home against Coastal Carolina, and then you're at home against Clemson. That's huge. That's a huge schedule. And not Marcel Reed, if Lanorris Sellers is not your quarterback, I don't see you beating Mizzou, which they need him to be in that Mizzou game. Their CFP hopes ride on that. I think you need him against Kentucky. You need him against LSU. Those are losses if you don't have Lanorris Sellers. You're probably losing to Oklahoma. You will lose to Alabama. You might not make it past Ole Miss or the way that Texas A&M just looked. You might get lucky to you will beat Coastal Carolina, and maybe you can squeak past Clemson depending on how they look at the end of the year. But the South Carolina Gamecocks could not win another game this season in college football if the Lanorris Sellers injury is as bad as it looks, because that easy schedule is behind them. It's way behind them. You have nothing but powerhouse matchups here. Again, Mizzou, LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M. That's 6 of their next 7 games are absolute bangers. And you have to go to LSU. You have to go to Texas A&M. You have to go to Ole Miss. Thankfully, you get Bama at home. You have to go to Mizzou. Imagine if you had to go to Kentucky. It's tough. It is very tough. I do not know how they're going to end up really faring out in this one. There is no really injury update right now. No timeline or news yet. Really kind of like, as of recording this right now at 8:12 on September 15th. Eastern Standard Time. They ran 41 offensive plays when Lanorris Sellers went out, and they failed to score. They had 184 total yards and 3 turnovers. 6-year senior Luke Doty, I guess, was that quarterback, and South Carolina just absolutely struggled to generate explosive plays. The final 3 possessions of the game literally ended in turnovers. I thought the targeting call, thought the ejection was pretty weak. Obviously, Lanorris Sellers got hurt. He did hit him up high, so that automatically calls for the liability that the college football refs carry in order to make that correct call. I get it. I'm just tired of these weak calls on roughing the passer. We had one in the NFL this week with Mahomes, and we had one in college football this week with Lanorris Sellers. But this was called as targeting. This was an ejection. I just thought it was weak. I didn't like it. And you guys know me. If the game is chippy, let them play. That's exactly how I feel. Let those boys play when it gets chippy. But this call, I just thought it was weak. That's going to wrap up episode 117. Let's bow our heads and pray before we get out of here. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for episode 117. Thank you for the fans, the audience, the people that make this possible. Thank you for giving me the wisdom, the grit, the grind to give the fans what they finally deserve in this new rendition of the show. Thank you for the amazing football scenes we've had so far. And as always, Lord, be with the world in such a fragile time right now with everything that's happened in the last week, with the passing of Charlie Kirk and just how it's really affected the world, how it's helped people come to see you more, God, because we know we need to seek you out in everything that we do. And as I always ask, Lord, the people that need you the most right now, the suffering, the weak, the the poor, the people in poverty, the people that just do not have a way they feel like in life right now. Lord, they need you to show yourself to them so they can be saved, so they can become that ultimate believer, so they can walk with you, be able to walk with Christ, be more Christ-like. And honestly, Lord, when I describe you to people, it's really about the perspective of what you want to have in life. And I pray, Lord, that you can give these people a perspective as they hear this prayer, as they hear this podcast, as they go out into the world and venture on much farther after this episode. As always, be with our families, our friends, and loved ones. Thank you for this. And in Jesus' name, we always pray. Amen. You guys know what to do before we get out of here. Please like and share wherever you may be watching. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the bell. Leave us a review on podcast platforms at NFL with AJL on all social platforms. If you cannot find us, my brothers, my sisters, you're simply not looking hard enough. We will see y'all hopefully recording on Friday morning with at Real Talk with MJ. He's an absolute player in this space. Over 80,000 followers between Instagram and TikTok. Over 7,000 subs on YouTube. He is the #1 Eagles content creator. I feel like I'm literally about to introduce him right now, but I wish that I was, man. It's going to be a great show with him as we bring him on at the end of the week. Going to be great to be able to collab with him. As always, I love y'all. I need y'all, and I will see y'all in the next one.